Yes, it's the Finnish football show. This is the second attempt at recording this show because we started and hadn't recorded. So we'll go again. I'm here, as you can see, with Rich. It's the morning after the Finland versus France game. We're in my hotel room, but we didn't stay here together. Rich has just joined because this is the only quiet room in the hotel to record in. And it was the first time that all four of us in the Finnish football show actually were together in the same place for the game last night. So let's have a little look back at some of those memories. We've got Keke there. He's out and about somewhere in Helsinki. Let's start by hearing from Keke. What are you up to at the moment, Keke?
Hello, lads. Yeah, I didn't choose a quiet room. I chose. I'm here in Sornainen, Kurvi. I've just been having a walk around town before I make my way back to the airport. Yeah, just got to buy as much rye bread as I can stuff in this backpack to take back home to London. But first of all, cracking for us all four of us to be together last night. Obviously disappointed with the result, but what a night. It was brilliant for all four of us from Finnish Football Show to be together. And what an atmosphere. The atmosphere was absolutely fantastic. Inside the stadium, it was great to see the stadium full. And before the game, the march up, what an atmosphere, boys. It was absolutely brilliant to be part of.
Yeah, it was. That march was quite something. I was expecting it to be a couple of hundred people walking through the park all the way up to the stadium, but there were a lot more than that, Rich, weren't there?
Yeah, I'd say at least a couple of thousand there, joining from Campia all the way up to the stadium. The 15-20-minute walk took probably just over an hour with stoppages, allowing the traffic to go. The various kneeling that we talk about where we're old men in creaking knees and people drinking and collecting the cans as well, so doing a bit for the environment and litter. But it was cracking atmosphere, really well organised, and it's nice that the local fuzz are helping. They're not impeding for once. They're actually being quite helpful for a change.
I was amazed that they closed the streets to let this mass of humanity come passing through. And I put a video in the Facebook group, the Finnish Football Show fans group, and it was one that Satu took when we were kneeling down. All this groaning from men and women who found it all a bit too much up and down on those knees. But while we were kneeling, you can see in the background a tram going past, and that's so Finnish to see these old style trams going past, rattling past in the distance. And then as it passed, all the fans stood up, jumping around, going crazy, and more fireworks and flares and everything. It was a real experience. Mark.
Yeah, I mean, from the outside, the first thing you got to say is it's really well organized. You know, I mean, it's it took us an hour and a bit to do that 15-minute walk. But it was the way the police worked, and then also the SMU call lads at the front, keeping everything in line, and also getting the songs out. That was really good stuff. But on the outside, it might look like a bit intimidating and aggressive because we've got like a big march, thousands of people and fireworks. But on the inside, it was like a proper party. Like there was old geezers, there was young lads, there was even families and a couple of kids sort of hanging about. So on the inside, it was a real party atmosphere. It's really cool.
When you compare and contrast that with sort of scenes that we saw in Wembley in the summer for the Euro final, and I sent that video to a family group, my family group on WhatsApp, and my young nephew George, he said, "Oh, you couldn't do that in the UK. You'd be like hit with batons and arrested for behaviour." But actually, there wasn't really any bad behaviour. It was just people walking really slowly, like you said.
Yeah, I think there were actually a few French fans in there as well. Yeah, I saw a couple. I think that's just they see a group of people walking to the game, and there's no trouble. And obviously, it's very much Finland fans, and people were watching from the windows, waving and wondering what the hell all these mad people are doing. But it was the atmosphere was great, and having been at the Euro 2020 final when the atmosphere was quite the opposite. It was nice to walk in a group like that and not have bottles thrown and be covered in blood and fighting and things like that. So, it's an atmosphere definitely recommended for anyone who goes to a Finland game in the future.
Yeah, we decided already. That was my first Finland game yesterday, but we're going to come at least once a year, make an effort to get down there and, maybe more. Let's see. It takes a bit more effort than just cycling to the Oma Aspe Stadion in Seinäjoki, but it's worth it. Well worth it. Mark, you were commenting earlier that we got to meet quite a few people that sort of know the podcast, listen to the podcast. Maybe it's a good time now to give a few people a shout out. I remember from the march, there was a guy called Lauri who had been chatting with Keke, and then he made his way back to us, and he was like, "Hey, you Mark from the Finnish Football Show?" I said, "Yeah. I love the podcast." And I said, "Hey, it's not just me. Look, there's Rich, there's Mark," and he was like, "Wow, all together." And it was really nice. And Lauri, if you're listening to this, it was good to meet you, and we appreciate it. And I don't know if the listeners really understand that, they like hearing their names read on the podcast, and we need this validation from you guys that this is all worthwhile. Obviously, we met Jamie as well. He was on the same flight as Rich, and you guys have met up before, but it was the first time to meet Jamie, and we had a bit of a chat before this big FFS reunion kind of happened, and the conversation ended, and I didn't get to see him again afterwards. So I'm sure he was at the game somewhere and enjoyed it like we did. But who else did you speak to, Rich?
Well, say Jamie, and we also had a very quick hello, but also Keke got to speak to a listener of the show. We call him a friend of the show. Timo, we'll say 10 international caps, 2 international goals for Finland. Recently retired, so he's taken up politicking and probably gardening, but he's aware of what we're doing, and it's nice to know that we're reaching the exalted council chambers of Turku.
And he's aware of what we're doing, but did he say he likes the show?
I didn't hear that, but I heard he said one of them mad enough to support Cups. So,
and what did you do? Head down and out the door. Mark, who else did you speak to there?
I think, if you're going to shout out to somebody, it's at FinVisible. So I don't know if you're on Twitter, give at FinVisible a bit of some love, some likes, and some follows, because he's a good crack. It was really good to sort of put a face to the handle in a sense and get to know him. I think his name's Nico. Keke is one of your Jyväskylä massive guys, right?
Yeah, that's Nico from Jyväskylä. He's one of the original Higham Pojat boys, and Nico is honestly one of the first lads who sort of welcomed me into the world of Finnish football when I was standing, made my way out the back to all the lads singing there at Iron Stadium. So yeah, Nico deserves a big shout out, and yeah, it was lovely to see everyone. It's all the regular faces, we caught up with Marko Sareks in the pub before the game, yeah, and then afterwards I managed to see the Oulu twins, Tommy and Matti, and that was great there. You'll see them at every Finland game, home and away, so that was nice to see them. And our old mate Jusso from he's a Yaps fan, so it was nice to see him. He's a regular listener to the show, so yeah, just lovely to see everyone, and great friendly atmosphere. It was brilliant.
There was also your friend Ville, who looked after you, I think, a bit yesterday, and also Erno as well, that I was speaking to, and probably others, especially later in the bar after the game, where names become a bit of a blur. But I definitely remember having a few nice conversations in there as well. So all good. Thanks for making us feel special. We felt special. But there was a football match yesterday as well. We made our way to the stadium with the big crowds, and we got there in good time and had a chance to sort of hang around outside and have a couple more drinks before going in to the game. And there were 6 of us together. Rich and Keke were right in the mass of the Asamjiko in the Pohjois-Karre, and Mark and I were with Mrs. Mark and Mrs. Mark and Mrs. Mark, I suppose. and we were at the same end, but just a couple of blocks over. And as a first experience, that was perhaps close enough. Rich, you've been in Pohjois-Karre before. But how did this game? How did the experience of this game compare? Because it was a pretty much full house yesterday.
Yeah, the last Finland game I went to in the Olympia Stadium was 6 years ago. It was Miksu's last game, a 1-0 defeat to Hungary in front of I'd be surprised if there were more than 10,000 in the ground that day. There were nearly 32,000 there last night. Full house. There's a new roof on the stadium, which I suppose was almost lifted at certain points, particularly at the end after the game had finished. But it was, I mean, the atmosphere was great. I think the fact that we'd always planned to go to this game together, and the fact that there was something riding on it after the win last weekend, Finland's destiny technically was in their own hands. Just the small matter of the world champions who coming off an 8-0 win. But yeah, everyone was up for it. Everyone was keen. It's hard to kind of describe to people who don't live in Finland or haven't been here before that a 9:45 p.m. kickoff on a Tuesday in November is hardly conducive to what you'd expect that kind of atmosphere to be. But it was like, the typical Tuesday night at Stoke. But it was so amazing to be in there and how excited people were following the game. Well, people were still following the game in Bosnia as well, but people were singing the whole way through. The chaps on the scaffolding at the front with the megaphones leading the chanting. I don't think they turned around to look at the pitch once. It was
they don't like football.
No, they're just there for the singing. Yeah. But I mean, it was a cracking atmosphere, and to see so many people there, and again, these are people who were there before the recent upturn in results. So these people were there sort of 6-7 years ago when things were at their lowest ebb, certainly in the last generation. So
not arrivistes like me and stuff.
No fair weathers or Johnny come latelys. But they're all there, and it was fantastic atmosphere, and I think it bodes well for the future.
Keke, you're more regular in there. Just describe it a little bit for people. Because it's lively. Is everyone standing in there? I mean, where we were a couple of blocks over, we were standing. We were at the back of our block, so we were standing because there were some people standing in front of us. But what was it like over where you were?
Yeah, I mean, it was brilliant. Like everyone's just huddled in together. I mean, it wasn't the coldest night in Finnish history last night, but it was nice to be sort of huddled together to sort of keep warm. And I mean, I'm sure my ticket had a row number and a seat number on it somewhere, but I'm pretty sure I never found it. I never made it to that row. We just all sort of bombed in and lumped in and was jumping up and down, arms around each other, and just stand where you like and give it your utmost. You know what I mean? It was absolutely brilliant. I mean, I've been to quite a few Finland games, but that was my first one on the Pohjois-Kara, and it was absolutely fantastic. As Rich said, the capos down the front on their scaffold with the megaphones, just keeping things going. Yeah, they hardly turned around to see the game. It was excellent.
So you've been to mostly away games, haven't you? That's right, because 2 years ago was your first home game, and that was where the Liechtenstein game where Finland qualified for the Euros, but you weren't in the Pohjois-Kara that time.
Yeah, that was at Bolt Arena, so it was a little bit different, but yeah. Go on, Mark.
I was at the obviously the Ukraine game, which I think had about 28,000, so it was about 3,000-ish under capacity. So last night was sold out and it was raucous, but the Ukraine game a month or so ago was it was quiet. You know what I mean? Like I think it was one of the first times that the crowd had got back in, post COVID, and the game obviously on the pitch it was quite a dull affair, and it wasn't that sort of technically very good, so there was a sort of a weird awkwardness in the air. But last night was banging. It was absolutely it was fantastic. I think even outside of the Pohjois-Kara there was a lot of singing going on and a lot of good vibes.
I think I was a little bit blown away at the beginning. I had this realization yesterday that I'm nearly 50 years old, and I've spent most of my time watching football in front of small crowds. I've been a Fulham supporter in the 80s with my dad in the 80s and 90s with crowds of a few thousand, and a Wimbledon fan, all my life as well with pretty small crowds. And now watching Huuhkajat. I've only ever been to one England game, so I got there yesterday, and there's a lot more razzmatazz around football nowadays with all the lights and the music beforehand. So it took me a while to realise that a game of football had actually broken out. Mark, you wrote a match report. I mean, by the time I got home in bed, you'd already sort of pretty much published a match report. I'm not quite sure Yeah, yeah. So, well, you just remember the game then. So let's tell the listeners a little bit about the game.
Well, I mean, on the pitch, I think it started as you'd expect. So France they changed their team a fair bit, and I think we've lost Keke. So on the pitch, I mean, it looked like France changed their team quite a bit from the one that beat Kazakhstan, but they kept Griezmann and Mbappe, which meant they always had like that edge of quality. We made two changes, so Force went out and Nisila came in because he was massively impressive in Bosnia, and then the other change was Jere Uronen coming in for Jukka Raitala, and he came in at right back, which is unusual for him. I mean, the first half, we just sort of sat back, tried to soak up the pressure and diffuse the press, keep the ball a little bit and move it around. And I think we did a good job in keeping it tight and frustrating the French. They moved it around, shot from distance, tried to get in behind, but they didn't really click anything in, that was particularly dangerous. So I think from the first half, it was tense, but I don't remember any real critical breakaways. I think Pukki had a shot on the half turn from distance. It was pretty comfortably saved. And I think Luque made one sort of fingertip save that I think the ref gave as a goal kick, and didn't notice.
I think that's a good point. I looked at some basic stats afterwards, and possession for the whole game was quite even. I think it was 53 to France, 47. And shots were 8 to France and 5 to Finland, and maybe 3 on target and 1 on target in favour of France. So it felt quite even on the night, apart from those two sort of flashes of class leading to the goals.
Yeah, well, I mean, Benzema's goal. Benzema had only been on the pitch a few minutes. He scored in the 66th minute, and it was a nice little 1-2 in the box. But his shot got a deflection off. I think it was Leo Väisänen, past Radetzky in the goal, and that. I think at that point, Ukraine had already gone 1-0 up in Bosnia. So people where we were already kind of checking the live score app on their phone going...
Yeah, so were me and Mark.
Yeah, so we were checking that going, okay, well, if Ukraine are 1-0 up, then Finland needed a score draw at that point. So actually going 1-0 down wasn't the worst thing in the world because Finland still needed to score. But then 10 minutes later, Kylian Mbappe, who hadn't been hugely influential in the game, I think that he'd had a couple of half chances and hadn't really done much. But yeah, some real quality. Got the ball sort of just inside the half, took it past Taylor, cut inside, and it was a fantastic finish into the far corner. I mean, you could see why. That's the thing, is where on the game was fairly even, and then you have a player of that exceptional quality who can really make a difference. One of the best players in the world can do that with, I think, 14 minutes to go. It's 2-0. And then Ukraine scored as well to make it 2-0 there. And it was that was the end of it, really. It was a shame, but it was a great goal to see.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rasmus Schuller in the middle of the pitch was again excellent. He was just really he was on top of everything, closed the space down well. He was always available for a pass, and his tackling was really good. I thought he was unfairly booked by that Italian referee that didn't give us anything and gave France a free kick every time somebody sneezed. But I think when after Ukraine scored and went ahead, Uribe he took off Schuller and put on Force. And the bit when then Benzema comes on, they've got a little bit more space sort of to build and break through, and they countered really quickly. And I really think that if you look at the build-up play, there's a sort of Schuller-shaped hole in the middle of the pitch when the French break through. We needed to do something, and it's just a shame that Schuller came off, and the French just exploited it. You get one bit of bad luck, like a deflection, and they capitalize on it. And then you've got that one bit of quality that's always sitting there in somebody like Mbappe. Because when he burned past Taylor, you just thought, bloody hell, where's he going? And then he pinged it into the far corner. And you thought, well, that was quick. It's only been about 4 seconds since we were in the other half. So it's, But from Finland's perspective, I don't think there was no shame in the result. I thought we gave as good as we got. I thought, particularly start of the second half for about 15 minutes, we were the better team,
I thought that the substitutions you just mentioned there, it was bold. I mean, didn't we end up playing something like a 2-4-4 or a 2-3-5 formation? It just piled on all the forwards and went for it, and there was nothing to lose. Why not? I mean,
yeah. Well, Pohjanpalo came on towards the end, and there was just generally a kind of win or bust thing. I think Finland at that point would have needed a 2-2 draw. Would have been fine at that point. But again, coming back, it's already a difficult job. I was really impressed by Huuhkajat last night. It was really the way he works with the ball. He carries it forwards. He's always moving. I saw the L'Équipe ratings, which are notoriously harsh. And I think sort of in the history of L'Équipe ratings, I think they've given 10s to fewer than 10 people. Mbappe got the most. I think he got 8 out of 10. And Nisila by far was the most highly rated Finnish player. I think he got a 6, which for them is the equivalent of getting an 8 or a 9 anywhere else. And I mean, he really was good. And it's nice to see a couple of domestic-based players in the team, with O'Shaughnessy as well, doing really well. And I mean, we'll come on to it later. But there's now that Finland are out of the World Cup, no playoffs. So there's going to be a few months now until the next competitive fixtures, which I think the Nations League draw is in December. And the games start in June.
Yeah, I was looking at that this morning. There's 4 games between the 1st and the 14th of June. So the actual dates to be decided and the opponents to be decided. But I did notice that there's sort of a few of the teams that are in Finland's group now are in the same pool of the teams for the Nations League. So let's hope we avoid them and get some different teams.
Yeah, fed up with Bosnia.
Yeah, exactly. Mark.
I was just going to say the same thing. I could go back to Bosnia as many times at the minute. I mean, they also, I saw some of the match reports that came from Bosnia and Ukraine, and Bosnia was sort of in it and competitive up until half time, hit the post at one point, but according to many sources, they just almost down tools in the second half. They as soon as the Ukrainians scored, they just sort of folded. I mean, and that's on a night when their star player Pjanic was already basically dropped from the squad because he'd been out on the lash, allegedly, the day before. So I can go back to Bosnia again because it doesn't look like they're taking it seriously.
So at the end of the game, it finished Finland 0, France 2, and then there was a big huddle on the pitch. The entire Finland squad, all the backroom team and everything. And I guess this was probably at the point they were starting to say their goodbyes to Paulus Arajuri and Joona Toivio, who, I don't know, retired from international football. Is that how it's been sort of explained? There's a lot of caps gone from the squad there, nearly 150, I think, between them.
Yeah, well, we talked about it in the last couple of episodes, how they've been phased out of the starting 11. Now, the retirement, again, with where Finland are in the international calendar now, they've now got, I think the qualifiers for Euro 2024 start in March 23. So they've got the best part of 18 months now. And these guys have been around a long time. There's a lot of caps. They've been really influential. And I think it's whether it's a chicken and egg. Did they retire because it's the end of this cycle of fixtures, or because they were starting to realise they're being phased out of the team and go on a sort of high? They've had a fantastic couple of years, well, 3 or 4 years now. And, that as servants to the team, as part of the spine that got Finland to Euro 2020, and, have got Finland to within 90 minutes of a playoff for the World Cup. What they've done has been fantastic, and they got a very well-deserved reception from the Pohjois-Kara. And it was nice to see. And it's a shame that, these all good things come to an end. We've already had Luke Radetsky and Teemu Pukki have come out and said, no, we're not retiring, just to make it clear there's not going to be that much churn from the team. But with Toivo and Arajuri going, we'll have to keep an ear out and see if, I guess, Tim Sparv's the next obvious one. I think he's 35 in February, and he's not played very much in the last 3 or 4 months, or certainly since he's come back to Helsinki.
You do wonder if we'll get maybe a friendly or something. I'd hate for it to be like in Dubai. I'd like a home game. Towards either the end of the year or the start of next year, with maybe one last run out for the lads, particularly Tim, who didn't get. He wasn't in the squad this time round, and he didn't get the sort of lap of honour that Toivio and Arajuri got. But I think both of those guys are 33-ish, they turn 34, if not 34. And the last couple of games has shown that, even of Väisänen or O'Shaughnessy, they're really stable lads, and you've got Tenho, guys like Tenho coming through, biting at the heels, trying to get a chance. So I think it's, if they move aside now, then I think there's a sort of good crop of relatively established players and youngsters still looking to come through. But if you think about when Arajuri and Toivio came in, that they would have come to the prominence at about the same time that Moisander retired, same time that Arkivor retired, like from the international team. And I think very few people had a lot of faith in them. They just thought that these are sort of second rank players and they'll do a job for now, but we're in real trouble as a country. And they actually turned up to be, particularly in those early days when Rive played 4-4-2, Toivio and Arajuri were like the absolute steal that got us so many clean sheets, that got us through the Nations League, that got us into the qualification for the Euros. So they've done a massive job in building the foundations to turn Finland around.
Yeah, and I think we've talked over the last year anyway, about young players that seem to be coming through the under-21s, and that it must be a real incentive for them now to see players like Ivanov and Väisänen and Niskanen and Nissula, all kind of coming through from domestic football through the age ranks and into the first team. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the under-21s have had a bit of an up and down weekend. They got beaten 3-1 by Norway, but then yesterday they won 1-0 against Estonia. Yeah. So there are players coming through, and there seems to be production line it sounds a bit too prosaic, but there seems to be this group of players coming through, and Rive is not shy of bringing them in and the older players sort of transitioning out of the squad. So it looks positive.
Yeah, he's got quite bold this year with some of his selections. I think after changing to a 3 or 5 in defence after the successful 4, still haven't quite settled on the wing backs. But there are players kind of on the cusp of, we've got the generation who are probably now towards the end of their careers. I mean, I guess Reitala as well. Is he 32 now? I think 32, 33. So there's going to be more players, there's more places, and some of the players in that under-21 team, admittedly, they're the more kind of attacking midfielder types, just to clog up that spot on the bench, with, say, Taylor came on as a right wing back last night, but on Ivalakari as well. And then in the under-21's got Suhonen and Ant-Man as well, look very promising. So it's interesting to see how it's going to go, because next year for Finland is going to be, it's Kanerva's last year of his contract anyway. So his contract expires at the end of next year. So there's going to be a lot of learning. The Nations League is really going to take precedence there. And then the friendlies that go around that. So he's going to learn an awful lot about where the team and the squad are in 12 months' time. There'll probably be quite a few new faces in and around the squad, if not in the first 11.
Surely that contract will get renewed. We're not going to have another halfway through the final season. Let's see if we review it. Just get that pen on paper and keep it going. Yeah, Mark, sorry.
Yeah, well, we said at the start that this group is tough. Ukraine, Bosnia, France. So it's not like a there's not really a decent game in there. Even the way Bosnia turned out, it's still a very hostile place to go, and they're still a very difficult team. And I think Pukki said it in pre-match yesterday, is that if you'd have given the squad like a shot at qualifying through the playoffs on the last game match day, they'd have taken that at the start. So I think plus that that you go back to the way we play against France. The way we play against France is not like, we don't park the bus. We're not trying to do a Gijon like miracle. We play against France. Like, we play through them, we play around them. We've got good, we build up play, we take shots, and we caused them some problems last night. We just needed to be more, because of results elsewhere. We had to push on. So I think if you look at the overall campaign, Rive's he's done a really good job.
One thing, we didn't say that last night was Pukki's 100th cap for Finland as well, which is a nice little touch.
In coinciding with our 100th show last weekend.
I think his career's lasted a bit longer, but we've probably scored more goals, I think. But I think when you look at that group and the way it finished as the seedings were, with France, Ukraine, us, Bosnia, Kazakhstan. And when you look at the seedings as well, Mark's mentioned it before, France, Ukraine, Bosnia, and I think Kazakhstan as well were in the top 1 or 2 of each of the pots. So they were amongst the strongest teams that Finland could have played. And to come out of it dropping to 3rd on the final day, it is difficult to take when, it was in Finland's hands certainly for the last game. But I think, if you look at where Finland were before Riva anyway, under the glorious reign of Hans Backer and the latter days of Miksu, most people would have bitten your hands off just to be in this scenario.
That's true. And it was in Finland's hands, but it was against France as well.
Well, exactly. It's in Finland's hands against the world champions.
Yeah, exactly. Mark?
No, just the same thing. It's been such a long journey that any talk about the contract has to be quashed. We need to just get Rive signed up and get him on.
All right, I think that's probably about it. We've had a message from Keke that he dropped out because his phone died. So we'll just send you love, Keke. Have a safe journey back home, and we'll all see you soon. I guess I'll get this out in the next day or so, and then we'll have a think about when we're next back together. We might be coming towards a kind of closed season break.
I think the Nations League draws in a couple of weeks. So I think by that point we'll know Finland will be in whichever pot, in whichever division and league, and however it works. It'll be fun. But there'll be a few, hopefully some new countries to play, because in that pot Finland are quite familiar with most of them. So it'd be nice to get some.
And also Keke's stalking Finland footballers on Instagram, so he'll probably have a few interviews lined up for us to do as well. Even
last night during the game, he was like, right, he's next. So, I think if the police had been listening, he sounded like a sniper.
All right. Mark, thanks a lot for joining us today. Really good to see you, spend some time with you and Tina yesterday. And we'll see you again soon. Rich.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you. And to the listener, thanks for listening to the Finnish Football Show. It's another one of our match report episodes, and we'll be back again soon. Bye.
Moi.
Ja Pohjois-Kaaren laulaa, aika meidän kuluttaa. Ale, 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 ale. En tiedä parempaa. Kisoihimme mennään, Riven johdollaan. Uusi aikakausi koittaa, kiitos Riven lutioon. Ja Pohjois-Kaaren laulaa, aika meidän tullut on. Ale, 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 ale. Ale